Now, if you missed watching the Australian Open men's semi-finals today, both of them, please make sure you catch the highlights, though I feel it won't do justice. What we witnessed today, especially in the first semi-final, was nothing short of sensational. No highlights package can really match up to every single point, every single set, and the emotions really that went down at the Rod Laver Arena. When Jannik Sinner took on defending champion Novak Djokovic, and in fact went on to become the first man to beat Djokovic at an Australian Open semi-final. Now, I'm going to come to the match and the relevance of it in just a bit, but this is probably a pivotal moment in men's tennis. Now, why do I say so? There comes a moment, a match that sort of changes everything, changes your perception or gives an indication of things to come or the change in an era itself. It happened in 1989, right? I'm going way back here, but hear me out. So 1989, a young 18-year-old beat the defending champion back then at the US Open, Mats Wilander. The boy I'm talking about was, of course, Pete Sampras, and from that moment on, he did not look back. It took another year for him to win his first Grand Slam, but this was a shift, and you knew the Sampras era had arrived. Fast forward to 2001 and the championships, Wimbledon. A young 19-year-old upsets defending champion Pete Sampras, and by doing that, breaks Sampras's 31 match-winning streak at Wimbledon. That man went on to be the legend all of us were wowed by, Roger Federer. Of course, the first year he won a slam was 2003, but that win over Sampras dictated a shift in momentum. The FedEx era had begun. We move a few years to 2004, the first time Rafael Nadal played Roger Federer at an ATP event, Miami, I'd reckon, and he beat him. But the biggest win over Federer came a year later at where else but the French Open, and thus started the Rafa era. And when Novak Djokovic joined in and burst onto the scene, a unique three-way rivalry started. Now, Sinner's win over Djokovic at the Australian Open is the start of the Sinner era in men's tennis. Well, Carlos Alcaraz is there as well, joining in as part of the new era. And ironically for Sinner, it has come at the very place where it all started for the Serb, Novak, in 2008. Talking of the match itself, Jannik Sinner was flawless from the start. He put on the pressure on the Serb from the first set, taking both the first two sets with a lot of confidence. He dominated the match, taking a 6-1, 6-2 lead. But Sinner was not smiling because Novak has the most frustrating habit, frustrating for the opponents that is, of not giving in, of coming back even from the most difficult of situations and bouncing right back with a vengeance, something the opponent is not expecting. And Djokovic did show some glimmer of it, that world #1 tag, when he came right back to take the third set, immediately reminding us all of that Wimbledon quarterfinal where Sinner won the first two sets, but Djokovic somehow clawed back and won the next three. But this time, Sinner was focused. Even when play was halted for a while, I think a fan had fainted, probably owing to the heat. He got back up fine, but any such unforeseen pauses in a match can really break the momentum. It can shift focus, but it didn't shake Sinner. Even when Djokovic took a break and went off the courts after he won the third set, Sinner was not restless, he was not perturbed, he was not nervous. He was just ready to start and continue from where he left off. The focus was 100%, like he'd said before the match, that all he could do was control what he could on court, and he did that. There was no world #1 in front of him, no 24 slam winner staring down at him. He just went on, with no expression but just sheer determination. What unsettled Djokovic in the match was not just the way Sinner was getting all his shots back, but the depth and the power with which he was doing so. The service returns were on point, and even in uncomfortable positions, even when on the run, Sinner was hitting the shots back at alarming pace and accuracy. And the fact that Sinner's serves were more impactful today than Djokovic's only put added pressure. Then the whole drop shots tactic. That is one skill Novak has mastered, but Sinner had prepped for it. In fact, just some days back, he and his coaching staff was only practicing how to get to the drop shots and the kind of returns he should make from different parts of the court. So Sinner had done his homework for this encounter.
The first two sets, I saw that he was not hitting the ball as he used to. He was also not moving that well. And then I think he was also not that focused like we used to see him. So I saw this, but in the other way, being #1, you have to be ready for that he changes things up, and that he has done before in the third set, the level that was even. He's also maybe the best returner we have in the game. Didn't have one break point. So these are stats what are unusual for him. But in the other way, this can happen. In tennis, when you have a bad day, it's also tough to get out as a winner. So I realized, especially the first sets, he was not playing that great. but I tried to have the intensity as high as possible, and I took the chance.
Yes, by the time the fourth set happened, Novak, who was still in the hunt, was definitely frustrated, and it showed as he vented against the match referee for not shushing the crowd. But he was absolutely warm towards Sinner after the loss. There was an interesting anecdote as well that was revealed post the match. Sinner, when he had faced Djokovic in 2021, had lost to him. After that loss, Sinner's coach had gone over to Djokovic and had asked him what tips he could give so that Sinner could improve his game. And Djokovic shared some advice which the coach took back to Sinner. A heartwarming anecdote and probably shows a side to Novak Djokovic, one that we probably don't see as much. Now, after the loss, of course, Djokovic said that Sinner outplayed him in the match and that it was the fact that it was his worst Grand Slam outing. Now that we know, but today is all about Jannik Sinner. When Saudi Arabia was busy celebrating the number 1 and number 2 in the world, Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz, just some months back at an exhibition event, the cool and composed Jannik Sinner was busy skiing down some icy slopes. The calm-headed Sinner is able to take those cold, hard decisions, like changing his longest-standing coaching staff at the start of 2023 and bringing in someone like Simon Vagnozzi and Darren Cahill. And he trusts them blindly to see him reach their collective goal, which is being number 1. Sinner is open to constantly reinventing himself and getting better. Like last year when he made a change in his service action, and we see how powerful and impactful that has become. He's making cool, calculated decisions to keep bettering himself so that he can win Grand Slams and do it more consistently. And today, the 22-year-old sits in the final on the cusp of history. He's the first Italian man to reach the final of an Australian Open and is waiting to script something special. Up against him, though, is someone who can come back from near defeat, like he did in that other semi-final, Daniil Medvedev, who pulled out a stunning 5-set victory over Sasha Zverev. And what a cracking final that promises to be this weekend.